Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with a story from a few years ago, back when our OP worked in the deli section of a grocery store. It's a tale of workplace rules, tattoos, and a stand against an unreasonable policy. No visible tattoos. Years ago, I worked in the deli section of a grocery store. It was with the kind of people that get a promotion and immediately forget where they come from and have unrealistic expectations of you. I had to slice meat and cheese for customers, make sandwiches, make all the fried foods, wings, fried chicken, potato wedges, etc. When I was hired, I had my sleeves rolled to just below my elbow, and I talked to the hiring manager about my tattoos. It's the names of my kids, so nothing offensive. Anyway, about a year after I'm there, they decide that tattoos and piercings are against dress code. Anyone with piercings had to take them out, and anyone with tattoos had to cover them up. Since my tattoos go down to my wrists, I asked if that went for me as well, because I'm handling people's food all day, and if my sleeve gets dirty, I don't want it near someone's sandwich or something. They scoffed at me and told me that I should have thought about future employment when getting my tattoo. So I figured I can't break the rules, so I won't. The next day, as the main bosses of the store were walking around, I had my sleeves down to my wrists. But I was making fried chicken, so my shirt was soaked with chicken blood all the way up to my elbows. We had to cook 3 boxes every morning, about 150 pounds of chicken, and I was halfway through the 3rd box. When they yelled at me to stop what I was doing, I just innocently asked, "What's wrong? Can you see my tattoo?" They didn't answer me. I just stared, mouth agape, and the other looked like he was trying to set me on fire with his mind. So I said, "Well, if there's nothing else, I'm almost done here. I'll start making those sandwiches." They told me to go ahead and go home for the day. They tried to fire me, but since it was documented that I asked about long sleeves being unsanitary and I was basically told, "Sucks to suck," they can't fire me for following the rules they set in place. So they tried to start cutting my hours, so I said, very publicly again, that it felt like retaliation for the sleeves thing. So I said I'd need to speak with a lawyer. I couldn't afford one, but they didn't know that. And finally, a month later, they told me that I was allowed to have my sleeves rolled up while working behind the counter. To which I responded, "I actually found another job. I've been there for 2 weeks." Have the day your employees think you deserve. Guess this was a while ago? Good luck finding people without tattoos to do these kind of jobs today. And our second story. I don't work here, but we're all in the same century. For those who don't know, the Amish don't use modern technology, but it varies by sect. Some have phones, some even drive cars. I know you can find some with faults. Puppy mills are a problem, but most are the friendliest, kindest people you'd meet, even if you are English, as they call us. There's an Amish-owned bulk health food store near me, the kind of place where you can get things like 5-pound bags of good quality instant oats for 49 cents a pound and all sorts of specialty flours, nuts, seeds, and so on. The family that owns it is no electricity, lighting skylights supplemented with propane lights when needed, coolers run on propane, and so do the registers. Also, for various reasons, they don't take credit cards, and there are multiple signs, cash or check only, on the entry doors and around the registers. This is important later. So here I am on a major stocking up trip to the store, dressed in ripped jeans and a flannel shirt. I brought my mother so she can get a few things. In walks Entitled Shopper, yes. And how she found this place that's on back roads in the middle of farm country, I don't know. In her defense, I'd left my mother with my cart and my purse in a chair by a small shelf of cookbooks, and I was down on the floor moving bags of flour around looking for the largest size I can get. Yes, excuse me, don't they have any coffee in here? And where are the dolls? Me. Sorry, what? Yes, coffee. Where's the coffee? And why can't I find the dolls and those other handmade things? Me. Well, coffee's 2 aisles down on your right, and they don't sell dolls or crafts here. Yes. What do you mean? Of course they do. That's how these people make their money. It's all they know how to do. Now show me where the coffee is, and we'll need to go cups. It finally hits me. She wasn't just asking the first person she saw, but she thinks I'm an employee. Me. I don't work here. I'm shopping like you. And this is a grocery store, not a tourist stop. They don't sell hot coffee or crafty things. This is when it gets weird. And I get a little angry. Yes, of course you work here. You're stocking the shelves. Besides, these people always have someone like you around to help them. Me. What? Yes. You know someone who's not so waves hand like she's searching for the word, then lowers her voice sort of conspiratorially. Backwards? Someone normal who actually lives in this century? And she gives a snide little laugh like she made some original joke. Okay, so here's where I wanted to yell at this woman and tell her exactly where to stick her opinions, but I realize I can't because I really don't want any of the owners or actual employees to hear what she's saying about them, and I'm extremely thankful no Amish shoppers have come down the aisle during this. Me. Ma'am, this business is fully Amish owned and run, and I can promise you they're very capable, probably better at it than you and I put together. They don't need or want anyone to interpret for them. I still don't work here, though. And it sounds like this isn't the store for you, so maybe you should just move on and find some tourist trap to buy your crappy souvenirs at. I got lucky here. ES took a deep breath like she was gearing up for a major hissy fit when my mother comes up with the half-full cart and says, "Didn't you find the flour yet? I'm done with the cookbooks and we need to be home by 2 p.m. I stand up and say, "Got it, Mom. Found," I forgot exactly, but this many pounds and that many pounds in separate bags. They don't seem to have one large bag, so this will have to do. I lug the bags into the cart and say, "Excuse me to entitled shopper," and hightail it to the next aisle. Very grateful she just stood there, apparently trying to figure out if she was wrong and I was actually a shopper, or did I just bring my mommy to work with me? All I said to my mother was, "I'll tell you in the car." Not the most explosive story, no fights, no police involvement, just quietly tried to put her in her place. But here's where some wonderful karma comes in. We were delayed checking out when we asked about specialty salt. They only had small quarter and half-pound bags on the shelf, but said a shipment had come in, and they'd pack us a larger bag if we didn't mind waiting. Here comes ES and her husband. Boyfriend? I guess they found their souvenirs because everyone seems to buy these when they visit. They had a couple of shoe-fly pies plus a loaf of fresh bread and 2 sodas from the cooler. ES tried to pay by credit card. The cashier said, "We don't take card, but I can hold your items if you need to go get cash." And I had the biggest crap-eating grin on my face hearing the so-called backwards Amish cashier tell her exactly where to find 2 nearby banks that had ATMs, the names of the banks, and which one they recommend because the fees were lower if you weren't a customer. And I have to admit, I rubbed it in just a little. And then they came back with my salt, and instead of just "thank you," I threw in, "You're always so helpful. I really appreciate shopping here and how you run your business." It sounded over the top, but I said it just a little more loudly than I needed to, and I'm pretty sure I saw ES twitch a bit. We had to leave then, so I don't know if she paid cash or just skipped the pies and drinks. Living without technology doesn't make someone stupid. It might even be a lifestyle choice that they're happy to live without it. So it's great the rude shopper got to see how much they knew. And our next story. Entitled neighbor wants me to park my van down the street. About 7 months ago, I moved into a new, for me, home that's a corner house. I met all my neighbors and all seemed fine. But over time, I've come to learn that the older lady that lives next door seems to fit the bill for entitled. So I thought I'd share one of the experiences I've had with her for the past few months. My wife's in a wheelchair, and as such, we have a wheelchair-accessible van. It's one of the big full-size vans with an extended top. I park it in our driveway so that when it's rainy, which is here a lot, I can lower down the ramp for my wife and can just drive her wheelchair through the garage into the van. Easy peasy. But shortly after I moved in, I had this conversation with my neighbor. Of course, not word for word, but pretty close. Neighbor comes walking over when I'm out in my garage. She says, "Hi," then starts in on this. Neighbor, "I noticed you parked this big van," motioning to it, "in your driveway." Me, "Yes." Neighbor, "Well, I was hoping maybe you can park it somewhere else." Me, "Why would I want to do that?" Neighbor, "Well, I have a sitting area in my house and I like to watch the neighborhood through the day, and your van's blocking my view of the corner here." Me, "I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do that. My wife needs to be able to get into the van with her wheelchair." Neighbor, "Well, can't you park it in the street?" Me, "If I parked it in the street," and I pointed to the street in front of my house, "my wife would have to go out in the rain in her wheelchair to load, which isn't something I want her to do." Neighbor, No. I was thinking you could park in front of the house next to mine," and she pointed to the house 2 doors down, "or maybe on the side of your house, so it's not blocking the corner." She literally suggested that instead of parking the van in my own driveway, to park it in front of her neighbor's house 2 doors down from me. Me, "I'm not going to do that." My wife needs easy access to the van. Neighbor, well, it's just that I really want to be able to see what's going on in the neighborhood. Me, I'm sorry, but it's my driveway and my van, and I have to think of my family before whether you can view the corner. Neighbor, well, the people who lived here before you didn't have a big van that blocked my view. I kind of just looked at her at this point as I was kind of stunned that she was using the people who've moved out as some type of leverage to try and get me to move the van. Me, well, I'm not going to move it anywhere else. At this point, I don't remember what she said, but some grouchy old lady justification for what she wanted, then she turned around and walked away. I actually had been in contact with the people who were in the house before me, so I texted them and asked about the neighbor. They told me that the neighbor was always on them about this or that when they lived in the house. Sometimes they would do what she asked to get her to stop nagging them, and sometimes not. Me, I usually find myself in the not category. And our last story. HOA Karen destroyed the wrong yard. My wife and I have been together for over 25 years, and we've lived all that time in an apartment in a multifamily building in the center of a big city. My wife dreamed of having her own house in the suburbs, complete with a lawn adorned with garden gnomes. Finally, when our children grew up and became independent, we decided to move. A year before this, the coronavirus hit, and my office shifted to remote work, which seemed like the perfect moment. I realized I could live in a private house much bigger than my apartment for the same money, and closer to nature. We found a cozy house in a small town with a population of about 30,000 people. Before buying the house, an old friend of mine who'd already experienced the joys and sorrows of living in a homeowners association advised me, whatever you do, don't buy a house in an HOA. So we found a house without an HOA with a small pool and the lawn my wife desired. But it turned out that Karen, the president of the local HOA, lived across from us. The day after we moved in, Karen brought us an apple pie, all smiles, and suggested we join the HOA. I politely declined. As she left, she remarked, "We're not done yet, and I'll be back." And indeed she did return, but this time with a bill for the pie. Well, I had to pay. It seemed to be the price of hospitality here. Soon as we were settling in and my wife began decorating the lawn with gnomes, I received a fine from the HOA. I reminded myself that I wasn't a member of the HOA and threw the notification in the trash. The next week, while mowing the lawn, I found a note stuck to my mailbox. The HOA will not tolerate this disgrace in front of the house. Then one day, after returning from a restaurant, we discovered that half of the garden gnomes were smashed and my mailbox had been dumped into the pool. A note attached to the door read, "We will pay for the damage to your property, but no more gnomes. Regards, HOA." Karen clearly overstepped this time. In the U.S., mailboxes are federal property. I called the police. They lifted fingerprints from the note, which eventually led to Karen's arrest. It turned out she had long been aggressive towards neighbors, but there was never enough evidence. Karen was sentenced to 3 years in prison and had to compensate for all damages. Sometimes even gnomes can play their part in a great revenge. One day you're destroying someone's property, and the next you're destroying your life in prison. I think she'll often remember about garden gnomes on the lawn. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.